and that's been featured quite heavily on the album.
I want to go back to the 20s. Why are you so fascinating by this period? It was between the two wars? Is it for you a golden age? Or?
It is a golden age for music and for cinema, actually. The 30s more for cinema for me, but the 20s was very interesting because it was fresh, it was the beginning, and not only of modern music, but modern poetry and literature. Poets like T.S. Eliot, who's my favourite poet still, and he wrote his great poem The Wasteland in the mid-20s, and Scott Fitzgerald, of course, captured the whole spirit of the times in New York with The Great Gatsby, which is a story that they've filmed once again, which is coming out later this year. And we have some music in the soundtrack, which played by the band. So it was great for us to see the music that we've been making put to a purpose in that period.
For the sleeve of the album, Jazz Age, you used illustration of a French poster artist of the last century, Paul Collin. Did you do some research to find that kind of?
Well, I'd been aware of his work for a long time. I have one of his prints in my house, actually, at home, and but I just thought it was a perfect match for the music to use, some illustrations from that period, and doing them all by the same artist it gave it a kind of integrity to the project, I think. He was the boyfriend of Josephine Baker, who was one of the great stars of the period, American singer, dancer who went to Paris. And she's one of the kind of key players in the whole period, actually. And Paul Collin's drawings capture the kind of flair and the action of the time, because dance was a very important part of the period, and that kind of reckless dancing had never really been seen before. It was all kind of very new, and the fashions of the time also. It was the first time that women really kind of, I guess, exposed themselves. They were coming after the Victorian period, which is kind of very kind of straight-laced and sedate, and so it's an interesting period, the 20s, because there was also this dark undercurrent of crime in America with prohibition. So there was quite a lot of gangsterism, and that I think added a lot of spice and drama to the period, I think.
For Roxy Music's fans, Roxy Music sounded in the past, and I think still now, quite avant-garde.
Oui.
And it must be a big surprise for your listeners to discover that you're a real jazz fan. Like, why did you stop listening to jazz, or did you stop listening to jazz?
It's interesting, actually. I did stop listening for quite a long time. In the mid-60s, I became quite, interested in doing music myself. And while I was at university, I had a band. That's when I started. And that's when I kind of phased out jazz from my life in terms of listening to it for pleasure. I was too busy exploring, elements of rock music, R&B and so on. And it wasn't really till, I guess, about 10 years ago, I started listening to some of my old records and going kind of full circle, going back to listening to a lot of the music I listened to when I was a young boy.
You did study in an art school in Newcastle.
Yeah.
And I think you were studying graphic arts.
I was studying painting.
Painting.
Yeah.
And music at that time was not your artistic vocation.
Well, I'd been a big music fan since the age of 10, but I didn't know if I had any talent to make music until while I was at college, when I started singing with a band, and we did a lot of kind of R&B songs by I don't know, different people like Bobby Bland, Otis Redding, this kind of a lot of the Stax music from Memphis we liked very much, and I started writing. After I graduated, I moved to London. Then the pull of making music became stronger and stronger, and I started writing songs and putting together a band in London, which became Roxy Music, and that's what happened.
But is it true that you tried to before Roxy Music, that you tried to join King Crimson?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was looking for a kind of an opening, you know, into how to get started. I thought, well, here's a band that I like. I'd like their first album, In the Court of the Crimson King. I thought it was really great. And I heard that they were looking for a singer. They actually were looking for a bass player who could sing, and or a singing bass player, whatever. And I went to the audition and met Fripp and Peter Sinfield. They were the two main guys in King Crimson, and the audition went well, but they really wanted somebody who could play bass, which I couldn't do. So, but they did, however, put me in touch with some people who became my managers and who signed me up a few months later with Roxy, and that's how my career got started. Through King Crimson, really.
So there's a French word that characterized you a lot. It's elegance. You can see that on the sleeves of Roxy Music, the way you dress. Is elegance for you an artistic way to express yourself?
Well, I mean, sometimes people put too much weight and emphasis on that side of my life or my career, but the music is always like the most important thing. I mean, that's what I do. But I was always interested in clothes and design, all kinds of design, you know, whether it's cars or houses or furniture or books or whatever. And when I was a teenager, I used to work in a tailor shop to make pocket money, you know. And that's when I started getting interested in sartorial elegance. And so when it came to the beginning of my career in music, having a band, I kind of thought, well, we've got to try and make it look interesting as well, you know. And sometimes that kind of put off some people because they thought, well, you know, there's too much show or something. But I think show business was always of great interest to me because I loved all the Hollywood musicals, Fred Astaire and Gene Kelly, and always fabulous clothes and great music and great dancing. And I thought, well, I like to have it all, you know, which is why in the shows we've done in the last few years, we've had, you know, plenty of on-stage action with dancers and as well as the music. I think adding a little bit of show business isn't a bad thing. When I saw people like Otis Redding perform in the 60s, when I was kind of learning about everything to do with music, they were such great performers, and they put on a show as well as having great music. And I thought, well, we can try and do something interesting ourselves. And we knew some very interesting designers, young, talented people from the fashion world in the early 70s when we started. And Anthony Price was the main guy. He was a brilliant graduate from the Royal College of Art Fashion School in London, and he helped me design the look for Roxy with the clothes and the album covers, and we were very closely working together all the time as a team, you know. And he's still a great friend. I'm actually seeing him this weekend. He's coming to stay with me. And yeah, he's a very genius person. And I think we were very fortunate in the early days to have people like this interacting with us on everything.
So now we live in